I passed away with the utmost honor and solemnity. The 6 palaces were draped entirely in white mourning fabrics, and a posthumous title was conferred, a mere imperial concubine, yet receiving a funeral rite befitting an empress. In my dying moments, Xiao Chengjing held my hand and whispered, "It was the greatest regret of my life that I could not marry your elder sister. But fortunately, heaven took pity and ultimately let me meet you. If there is a next life, would you be willing to marry me?" Again, for the glory and prosperity of my family, I nodded in agreement. Who knew that upon opening my eyes, I had actually returned to 10 years ago. My eldest sister lay by the bedside, crying as beautifully as a rain-drenched pear blossom. Why did father insist on arranging a betrothal between me and that sickly son of the Jiyu family back then, when I already had someone in my heart? Wn Tang, what am I supposed to do now? The sound of rain tapping against the window lattice pulled me back to my senses, and I made a decision on the spot. I'll go in your place. 01. Wanting. Have you truly made up your mind? Jiang Qingwu's tone was half pleased and half doubtful. I stared at my 17-year-old self in the mirror, and it took me quite a while to snap back to reality. In my previous life, I had never figured it out. Only in this life did I see that her intentions were so blatantly obvious. Coming to me crying about her grievances was a lie. The real scheme is to soften my heart so I would marry the heir of Duke Jinggua's mansion in her place. After all, she already has someone she loves. That man is the most sought-after match for noble ladies across the realm, the Empress's own son, self-disciplined, courteous, and gentle as jade. The next sovereign of Great Chu, Crown Prince Xiao Chengjing. I lowered my gaze, my eyes darkening for a moment, but only a moment. Then I looked up and smiled. When the Duke of Jing's mansion sent the betrothal notice, it only stated that the engagement was with the Prime Minister's eldest daughter, without specifying which daughter. The young prince is handsome, so I'm willing to marry him. If you don't go speak to father soon, I might change my mind. Before the words faded, she hurriedly stood up, as if afraid I'd rethink my decision. I watched her retreating figure, my gaze growing colder by the moment. So impatient. When she finds out that the one she loves feels the same way, who knows how overjoyed she will be. After all, the me from my past life was exactly like her today, as the legitimate daughter of the chief grand counselor. Just knowing that she would become a concubine made her so overjoyed that she could no longer even recognize the way. 02. Becoming a secondary consort to the crown prince was, after all, nothing disgraceful. Moreover, Xiao Chengjing had yet to name a primary consort. From the Eastern Palace to the inner chambers of the Imperial Palace, I hold the highest rank. Like all women trapped in the harem throughout history, I have never ceased to struggle. I have fought against the consort, the virtuous concubine, the Empress Dowager, struggling against the imperial brother-in-law and his clan, struggling against the conservative old ministers, struggling against the aristocratic families, from fighting women to fighting men, from battling in the harem to battling in the imperial court. 2 miscarriages, the early death of a young daughter, deposed and reinstated multiple times. By the end of the struggle, even I no longer knew what I was fighting for. I could never see through the person lying next to me. I live like a blade in Xiao Chengjing's hand, no different from the fighting dogs at the market. Because I have never been able to win, I must keep fighting on. The people in the palace have changed, wave after wave. Yet I alone still remain. Once you enter the palace gates, it is an abyss. The struggles for power and position soon wore away the last traces of my girlish sentiments from years past. Parents are like creditors who cannot bear to see me down and out. My husband is like a sovereign, using me merely as a target. When I do things right, there is no reward at all, but when something goes wrong, I alone must bear all the blame. I am busy surviving, busy climbing the ranks, and busy maximizing the interests of the family. As for emotions and love, they have always been the most burdensome things in this palace. But after all these years, people aren't made of stone or grass. Even if there wasn't much true affection, Xiao Chengjing still treated me with a certain degree of distinction. It was like how an owner might, when in a good mood, give some extra treats to the cats or dogs kept at home. Besides, I'm far more useful than any cat or dog. A few lukewarm, almost begrudging gestures of care blurred my vision. making me believe this path might actually have an end. It wasn't until I knocked over the ink by Xiao Chengjing's desk and saw, among several sheets of rice paper stained black, a portrait of my elder sister 03. The portrait had yellowed with age, its edges worn and torn, only the maiden's innocent and naive eyes remained vividly lifelike, as if seen for the first time just yesterday. Beside it, a line of characters is inscribed, as ancient as the painting itself: "If I obtain wooer, I shall emulate Emperor Wu and hide her in a golden house." So it truly was just like that. In fact, I sensed it many years ago. His gaze would always inadvertently fall on her, my elder sister, Jiang Qingwu, a person who was the complete opposite of me. When giving birth to the eldest sister, the mother nearly died from difficult labor, which is why she has been especially indulgent with her all these years. Indeed, throughout the entire capital, there are few women more pure and straightforward than Jiang Qingwu, so much so that she dared to flee on her wedding night. After being brought back, she pointed at the heir of the Duke of Jing's manor and berated him to his face. The discord between the husband and wife was known throughout the city. My brother-in-law, having been sickly since childhood and kept alive only by constant medication, could not be bothered to control her. He indulged her hedonistic pursuits, and it became the norm for her to stay out all night. A few months ago, Jiyu Huaijin died suddenly at just 29 years of age. Rumor has it that Jiang Qingwu enraged him to death. Xiao Chengjing said that for my sake, he would grant Jiang Qingwu a titled honorific, so that the people in the Jingwa Duke's mansion would not dare to slight the Empress's elder sister. At the time, I was still wondering why he would think that way. Jiyu Huaijin's biological mother died early, so he had little influence in the family to begin with. It was merely because the second wife of the Jingwa Duke was a close friend of my mother. Jiyu Huaijin was only then able to maintain this marriage arrangement. Jiang Qingwu had always been willful and headstrong, and the Duchess of Jing treated her like her own daughter. No one would dare slight her. Only upon seeing that painting did she suddenly realize and remember, the drinker's heart is not in the cup. In fact, everything was wrong from the very beginning. 04 At the Crown Prince's birthday banquet that year, Xiao Chengjing, drunk, declared that his heart was set on the Jiang family's daughter. Everyone thought he was referring to Jiang Wantang, the paragon of noble ladies in the capital. Besides, the Empress herself had intended for me to marry into the Eastern Palace, and so I was married off, but not as a wife, as a concubine. The Empress told my mother that the current political situation is unstable, and the position of the Crown Prince's consort attracts too much attention. It would be better to marry into the family quietly first, and after Xiao Chengjing ascends the throne, I would surely become the Empress. She spoke earnestly, while my mother added fuel to the fire, and I, being young and ignorant, longing for youthful romance, fell from grace with one wrong step. I should have seen this coming long ago. The Crown Prince had always been repressed, as cold as an iceberg. How could he ever like the dreary snow of winter? He ought to love the free wind of summer. Making me his concubine was not due to any political instability, rather. Xiao Chengjing had a big fight with the Empress to reserve the position of his rightful wife for the one he truly loved. It's too late to say anything now. I remained silent, stuffed the painting back, and continued, pretending I knew nothing. 10 years. I no longer have the strength to fight, let alone that she is my own elder sister. I've never been able to win against her, so what if she excels in poetry, song, etiquette, calligraphy, and painting in every possible way? Heavenly timing and earthly advantage matter not. She possesses the most crucial element for success, human harmony. I only wish to live quietly, watching over my infant daughter. She is the only child I have left in this world, but some things, even if I want to avoid them, I simply cannot. Less than a year after Jiyu Huaijin died of illness, Xiao Chengjing brought Jiang Qingwu into the palace, under the pretense that I was in poor health and needed her to take care of me. That very night, I lit 3 sticks of incense for my short-lived brother-in-law. I'm really sorry, but only by thinking of him can I feel a bit better. 05 Obviously, Jiang Qingwu wasn't here to take care of me, but the moment she appeared, the concubines in the harem instinctively turned their hostility toward a new enemy, which left me quite at ease. The Empress' favor was so blatant that as soon as she showed up, everyone else united in common resentment. Yet Jiang Qingwu didn't need to fight at all. Xiao Chengjing would resolve everything for her. Not only was scheming against her unthinkable, but even merely approaching her had become a sin for others. De Fei, my rival for half a lifetime, came to me seeking an alliance. I only offered her a handful of melon seeds back then. I believed that if I stayed quietly on the sidelines, I could avoid disaster. I was too naive. One afternoon, I searched everywhere but could not find my daughter. Only after walking out of the palace gates did I learn that Jiang Qingwu had taken her away. I told myself it would be okay after all. We are sisters born of the same mother, and no matter what, she wouldn't be foolish enough to attack someone in broad daylight. But I was wrong. It was an early spring day when the chill still lingered because Xiao Chengjing had been busy with government affairs and hadn't seen her for several days. She took my daughter in her arms and pretended to fall into the lake, just to see whom Xiao Chengjing would save first, thereby confirming how important she was in his heart. Without a doubt, it would not be my daughter. After 11 was brought back, she developed a high fever. A day and a night later, just like her brother, she grew cold in my arms. I have grown accustomed to such things happening and no longer find them surprising. That night, I knocked on Jiang Qingwu's palace door, but Xiao Chengjing was not there. Jiang Qingwu impatiently rubbed her eyes, and before she could utter a complaint, I had already pierced her heart with a blade. Warm blood splashed across my face. Screams and cries rose one after another, everyone saying the imperial consort had gone mad. Xiao Chengjing did not appear for a long time. Expressionless, I made my way to the ancestral hall in the inner court, covered in bloodstains. All the candles had been knocked over, and the flames spread along the curtains. I smash whatever I see, and when I finally get tired of smashing, Xiao Chengjing finally arrives. He doesn't look much better than me. His eyes, usually as still as stagnant water, are now filled with shock and confusion. Surprisingly, I thought he would fly into a rage. Forget it. I've always had a tendency to be self-righteous. Tang, come here, he said to me. From across the blazing fire, for the first time, I disobeyed his order. Your Majesty, do you have any idea how exhausted I am? I asked him wearily. Truly, I have absolutely no strength left, not even the strength to grieve. I don't go out, yet he insists on coming in. Everyone tries to stop him, but I alone tighten my grip on the dagger in my hand. He parts the flames and walks up to me, a faint bluish tinge beneath his eyes. Tang, she is also my only daughter. It's okay, we can have more children. I didn't want to hear it. The dagger had barely been raised when an imperial guard's arrow pierced his abdomen. That blade eventually lodged in his left shoulder, just a step away from his heart. Before losing consciousness, I saw his constricted pupils and smiled as I said to him, Your Majesty probably doesn't know yet, but I killed your precious one. As long as I live, each time she gives birth, I will kill the child. And you are no exception. 06 The fire that day still wasn't big enough. The imperial physician arrived too late and was at a loss. Xiao Chengjing still had the energy to reminisce about the past with me. He acted as if he hadn't heard me. Trembling, he took his last breath and closed his eyes deeply. As usual, he stroked my limp, hanging hand, as if nothing had happened today, as if I were still his most favored consort, his sharpest blade. He spoke softly to me about our beginnings, about my family, my people, and how the youngest of my siblings in the old house are now the same age as my daughter. Yes, he's always had a way of stirring people's hearts. Suddenly, regret began to wash over me. But I don't know how to clean up this mess before I die. I don't know which weighs heavier in Xiao Chengjing's heart, sharing the same maternal clan with Jiang Qingwu, or the burning of the imperial ancestral hall. Fortunately, he has also gone mad. Tang, not being able to marry your elder sister was indeed the greatest regret of my youth, but fortunately, heaven took pity on me and let me meet you. If there is a next life, would you be willing to marry me again? What good would nodding do? I have been lying ever since the day I entered the harem. Making vows is as easy as drinking water. If there really is a next life, enemy, not friend. 07 And so it goes into the next life. Jiang Qingwu was very efficient. She ran to her parents and raised a ruckus, crying and shouting. She declared that she was in love with Jiyu Huaijin and scolded her parents for being stubborn, which had senselessly ruined 2 marriages. Her father, furious, refused her request for the first time and left in a huff. But it didn't matter, I had already given Jiang Qingwu a good plan. On the third day of Jiang Qingwu's hunger strike, my father came to find me. How utterly reckless. It's bad enough that your elder sister is naturally dull-witted, but are you also this foolish? In what way is the wealth and honor of the imperial family beneath you? Yet you insist on marrying your sister's own betrothed. I quietly took a sip of tea. When did I ever tell you that I absolutely must marry him? Have I been the one crying to you these past few days? Have I been the one throwing a tantrum, claiming my heart belongs to another? Father, since you know perfectly well that eldest sister admires the crown prince, why must you force someone against their will? Forcing someone against their will, with Wu's temperament, if she marries into the royal family, they'll devour her down to the very bones. My father was so anxious that he stomped and beat his chest, saying, "Your mother and I went through no small trouble to arrange a good marriage for her. Although the heir to the Duke of Jingning is of noble status, his position in the family is awkward. His stepmother happens to be a close friend of your mother, so whether or not she wins her husband's favor in the future, with your mother and me, and with the Duchess of Jingning, we can ensure she lives a life of joy and safety. But that spoiled fool, whether she even has the ability to stand firm in the Eastern Palace, how could your mother and I not know that as well?" He spoke with deep earnestness. Every word he said exalted me to the skies, and every word trampled Jiang Qingwu into the mud. He seemed utterly disappointed in Jiang Qingwu, but anyone with discerning ears could tell at once who his favorite was. The elder sister is a precious child to be spoiled and pampered. I am nothing more than a tool to uphold the family's honor. Being smart and considerate only became my fault, the very reason I deserved to be devoured alive. My elder sister has been on a hunger strike for 3 days. If you still refuse to agree, you won't get to see her live a safe and happy life. I smiled. Besides, this matter isn't as terrible as you think. The Crown Prince has feelings for her. He will surely find ways to protect her. The Crown Prince has taken a liking to your sister. Wanting, are you serious? Have my judgments ever been wrong? My father fell silent just then. My mother hastily pushed the door open. Husband, please agree to Wu's request. She was about to hang herself if the maid hadn't discovered her in time. Our daughter would no longer be with us. What? Watching my parents' hurried retreating figures, I knew this matter would surely succeed. To make it up to me, they might even give me a generous dowry, but there is one thing I did lie to them about. I truly did want to marry Jiyu Huaijin, a good-for-nothing husband with outstanding looks, wealth, power, and a good temper. It's my turn to enjoy such a good life. 082 matters were settled. Apart from the exchange of candidates, everything was no different from the previous life. Half a month later, at the Crown Prince's birthday banquet, the Empress would bestow a marriage upon the Crown Prince and my elder sister. I will not go. I have to stay in the mansion and await my wedding. Finding someone else wouldn't make much difference to the Jingwa mansion after all. The outside world only knows that the chief minister's daughter is to marry the heir to the dukedom. As for Jiyu Huaijin, he never cared about it in the first place. For Lady Jingwa, as long as the one married into the family is someone who can cause trouble for the heir, it makes no difference who it is. I never expected Jiyu Huaijin to come personally for the betrothal gift ceremony in the previous life. He used the excuse of a recurring illness and left all the arrangements for his wedding to Jiang Qingwu to the Duchess. Perhaps he and Jiang Qingwu had already fallen out long before. The Duke of Jing's mansion possessed wealth rivaling that of a nation. The dowry list stretched from the inner hall all the way to the main gate. Jiyu Huaijin spoke with my parents, his manner respectful, his words proper, and his etiquette impeccable. After all, I am also their own child. Under the premise that Jiang Qingwu had found a good home, to gain another such son-in-law, they were ultimately happy for me. After it ended, they allowed me to have a private word with Jiyu Huaijin. I didn't know what to say, setting aside whether this followed the rules or not. I had, after all, lived 10 years longer, so facing him was still somewhat awkward. The only conversation in my previous life that wasn't just polite formality happened after I got drunk that year, when the Northern Rong envoy came to the capital. Xiao Chengjing couldn't drink, so I took a few cups on his behalf. The alcohol was so strong that, after the palace banquet, I had to go to the imperial garden to sober up. Jiyu Huaijin accompanied Jiang Qingwu to the palace for an audience with the emperor, but she disappeared halfway. He had no choice but to wait in the imperial garden, where he happened to run into me. He is strong and optimistic. He busied himself tending to the flowers and grass, humming a tune, and only after quite a while did he notice there was someone else in the shadows, which gave him a start. Quite drunk, I clicked my tongue and shook my head at him. He looked around in confusion and finally pointed at himself. Me. I meaningfully extended a finger and wagged it at him. Brother-in-law, do you know where my sister has gone? He didn't react, his gaze still vacant, and I couldn't help but sigh. How pitiful. Jiyu Huaijin finally understood. Is your highness mocking me? There seemed to be a hint of laughter in his voice. How could that be? I repeatedly shook my head. The princess and the heir are like kindred spirits. Besides, how could I, who is far less carefree than the heir, ever mock him? The heir fell silent for a moment. After a long while, he spoke in a low voice. If you wish to leave the palace, your highness, I can help you. He suppressed the upward curl of his lips, and he did not seem to be joking. Forget it, I wouldn't want to implicate the young prince, I said calmly. Besides, everyone in this world suffers. Life won't suddenly turn sweet just because I change jobs. Drunk. And with a wandering mind, I thought of something else and smiled again. Maybe I would have agreed a few years earlier. After all, in those first years after entering the palace, I dreamed every night of someone coming to whisk me away. But still, thank you for your kindness, young prince. It's easy to catch a chill at night, so you should return to your residence. I turned my head toward the boundless night at the thought of that person. Her voice turned cold and sharp, as if regaining clarity. I shall go and report this to His Majesty. The events of that day somehow reached Xiao Chengjing's ears. In this palace, tens of thousands of eyes are watching me at every moment. I am always cautious, yet a single moment of relaxation led to a slip. Xiao Chengjing's expression was grim, and suppressing his anger, he asked me, "Did the noble consort tell the heir of Jingguo that you wished to leave the palace?" I turned my head and spotted, behind the layers of palace attendants, the sneaky eunuch of virtuous consort. Shifting my gaze, I began to lie again. I never said such a thing, Your Majesty. I beg you to see the truth. I took that wine for you, and virtuous consort is using my muddled state, unable to defend myself, to twist this matter. Your Majesty, she was sent from the southern frontier by Prince Ding. When you have no one reliable left by your side, who stands to gain the most? I spoke with careful tact, every word striking the deepest part of his suspicion. Yet his face grew darker and darker. Finally, with a mocking smile, he said, "Jiang Wanting, when will you ever stop facing me with such cold, clear calculation? My loyalty to your Majesty is as clear as the sun and the moon." He sneered. I didn't understand him. What I didn't understand was that the consequence was me being demoted yet again. This time, I was demoted from consort to a low-ranking lady of the court. The entire palace was in awe, realizing how unpredictable the emperor's favor could be. Following procedure, they each took turns mocking me, then watched as I was sent off to the most remote and distant palace. Time proved me right. Without me as his right-hand support, Xiao Chengjing was plied with wine and completely drunk within 2 days. He came to me in the dead of night. That night, I conceived Xiao Wanshi and, as if by a twist of fate, returned to the position of imperial consort. A year later, I heard news of Jiyu Huaijin again. It was that he had died of illness. It is hard to doubt that Xiao Chengjing had a hand in it. After all, Jiyu Huaijin not only married the woman Xiao Chengjing loved but could not have, but also tried to take away his most effective weapon. It was indeed a tragedy caused by my own negligence. Not only that, but in my past life I was quite wicked, often taking comfort in other people's tragedies. Thinking of this, I touched my nose. 09, Second Miss Jiang, Prince. To be fair, talking to Jiyu Huaijin is a very pleasant experience. His voice is clear and cool, his emotions are steady, and his mind is sound. Unlike other young nobles of the same age, he never gives off a sense of superiority or condescension the moment he opens his mouth. There's no need to worry that mid-conversation he might suddenly start showing off on his own, and then, if he fails to impress, fly into a rage. Speaking with him felt like truly speaking to another person. Gu Huijin took a box from the guard beside him and made a motion to hand it to my maid. Qinghe, this is your betrothal gift, you may give it to the steward, your highness. The servants below will handle it properly. He shook his head, lowered his gaze, and said, that was a gift from the Duke of Jing's mansion to the principal's daughter. But this is what I give to you. When he looked up again, there was a hint of seriousness in his eyes. It was something my mother left to me. Perhaps his sincerity moved me, or perhaps I had grown tired of scheming and lying. I decided to tell the truth. You should know why your stepmother insisted on arranging this marriage. She brought me here to manipulate you. Gu Huijin's eyes suddenly held a hint of a smile. He had always been optimistic. Then go ahead and manipulate me. His smile was radiant. I'm especially easy to manipulate anyway. But since Miss Jiang is willing to speak so frankly, I imagine she won't be easily pushed around. I also laughed. Chong Qinghe nodded, and she accepted the box. You treat me with kindness, and I will repay you with sincerity. Just then, someone arrived outside the courtyard. Second Miss Jiang, the East Palace has sent 2 sets of jewelry for you and the eldest miss. There is a phoenix-headed hairpin, and the Empress specifically instructed that it be given to you first. 10. My right eyelid kept twitching. The Empress in her previous life. The Empress did send 2 sets of headpieces, but there was no phoenix hairpin. The struggle for the succession has yet to be decided. The Crown Prince is the legitimate heir, Prince Ding is the eldest, and Prince Rui, though young, has the backing of his maternal family and commands a formidable army. The Empress, eager to win over my father, the Grand Secretary, to serve the Crown Prince, insisted that Xiao Chengjing marry a daughter of the Jiang family. Actually, compared to me, she had always favored Jiang Qingwu. A simple-minded daughter-in-law from a prestigious family would better serve her ambition of ruling as regent in the future. In this life, the Empress had already privately agreed with my mother, naming Jiang Qingwu as the Crown Prince's consort. Why would she go out of her way to give me a phoenix hairpin? My fingernails were almost digging into my palms. Mother doesn't know about this yet, does she? The servant shook his head. I rubbed my brow and said, you must be mistaken. I am already betrothed and have no ties with the Crown Prince. How could I accept such a grand gift? Go tell mother that this hairpin was given by the Empress to the future Crown Princess. Don't mention that you came to me. She will understand. But, the servant said with a troubled look, elderly matron Chen from the Eastern Palace specifically said this set matches you, and insisted that you must wear it to the Crown Prince's birthday banquet. Gu Huijin smiled. Oh, are you a servant of the Grand Secretary's manor, or a servant of matron Chen from the Eastern Palace? The servant dropped to his knees with a thud. Forgive me, miss, this servant takes orders only from you. I sighed softly. The whole manor knows. I am busy preparing for my own wedding and have no time to personally attend the Crown Prince's birthday celebration. How could this possibly be meant for me? You work at my father's side, so you need to stay alert. If you remember something wrong, that's on you. It's fine to make mistakes here with me, but out there, it's another matter. I, miss, am saving you. Do you understand? He nodded repeatedly. I understand, I understand. After the servant left, I gave Gu Huijin a slight smile. The household staff are a bit dull. Please forgive their foolishness, my lord. He shook his head. Second Miss Jiang seems to loathe the Crown Prince. Gu Huijin had evidently noticed something. Yes, my gaze lingered on the departing servant, and it was a long while before I looked away, like encountering a terrible monster. She can't avoid him fast enough. 11. That hairpin couldn't have been a gift from the Empress, then it can only be from Xiao Chengjing. Why would he take such an unnecessary action? Perhaps he has also been reborn and is testing me. What is the purpose of testing me? Has he finally realized my act of great defiance before my death and come to seek revenge? Or, as he said in his previous life, he still needs me to be his concubine after all? It's hard to find a strategist as meticulously devoted and multitasking as me. Xiao Chengjing is such a shrewd person. After weighing the pros and cons, he is indeed capable of returning good for evil, but no matter what he truly intends to do, I no longer want to put on a hypocritical face and live in fear as someone's concubine. To avoid any unforeseen trouble, I asked Jiyu Huaijin as he was leaving if we could move the wedding date up. He was taken aback, then nodded with a blush. That evening, Qinghe counted the endless land deeds and property deeds in the chest and asked me, "Miss, what does the crown prince mean by this?" Qinghe is innocent and carefree, but thankfully obedient and tight-lipped in my previous life, fearing she would be vulnerable if she entered the palace. I married her off to her childhood sweetheart, her cousin. Before I went to the palace, it had been a long time since anyone had a proper conversation with me or asked what I truly meant. Nothing. I propped my cheek on my hand and smiled. He thinks I can be reasoned with. He wants to buy a peaceful life with money. I thought you were going to the Jing Guogong mansion to wreak havoc. My lady, not at all, not at all. I took the items from Qinghe's hands. Your lady just wants to find a place where she can sleep well. If Jiyu Huaijin is righteous enough and doesn't stir up trouble, I will repay his magnanimity. Can't you sleep well at home, my lady? I did not respond to her words. Xiao Chengjing's love is an extremely elusive and useless thing. I dare conclude that even Jiang Qingwu will not have an easy time after marrying into the Eastern Palace. Stay at home. If something happens to Jiang Qingwu, I'll still have to jump into the fire pit in order to solidify the alliance between the Eastern Palace and the Jiang family. I'm really, truly exhausted, both mentally and physically. I never want to see him again. 12. I said I wanted it done quickly, but I never expected Jiyu Huaijin to be so efficient. The wedding date was set for 10 days later, 2 days before Xiao Chengjing's birthday, much earlier than Jiang Qingwu's marriage to him in the previous life. The dowry from her parents was extraordinarily generous, and together with half of the Jiyu family's betrothal gifts, it made for a grand procession stretching 10 li. My mother clung to my hand and wept inconsolably before my departure. I pulled my hand back. Today the Empress is present as well. Mother, you ought to take eldest sister to appear before Her Majesty more often, my dear child. Your sister's matter can wait. What your mother cannot set aside today is you. There's nothing I can't set aside. Behind the veil, I appeared quite composed, without even a sob. Father and mother have played favorites your whole lives, and you should continue to do so. After all, the Jiang family's wealth and honor will depend on eldest sister. The mother froze entirely. Tanga, what are you saying? When did your father and I ever? I smiled. I was just joking. Mother, why take it seriously? Below, they were urging the bride to get into the sedan chair. I turned and left without the slightest hesitation. This time, she did not take my hand. Behind her, an even more sorrowful and mournful wail seemed to erupt. It was hard to imagine that the mother, now grieving so bitterly over her younger daughter, had in her previous life condoned, indulged, and even abetted her elder daughter's intrusion into the palace to seize the younger daughter's husband. If not for Jiang Qingwu as a contrast, this pair of parents would indeed be exceptionally good parents. Unfortunately, there are no IFS in this world. I used to feel a sense of unwillingness. Now I can't even be bothered to feel that. When we arrived at the Duke of Jing's mansion, Jiyu Huaijin helped me down from the carriage. Being a legitimate wife means one can walk in through the main entrance openly and honorably. Outside, the crowd was buzzing and wedding blessings rose one after another. Jiyu Huaijin smiled just right, which only made today's warm spring light seem even more radiant. The path was blocked by a brazier. Just as I was about to step over it, my feet suddenly left the ground as someone lifted me up. My body stiffened. A murmur of commotion came from outside. Someone teased Jiyu Huaijin. Young lord, this isn't proper. Careful, or the bride might get the upper hand in everything in the future. His tone remained gentle. The girl spent hours dressing up carefully. It wouldn't be nice for the hem of her dress to be stained by ash. Another wave of sighs. He stepped over the brazier, and I was set down. Just as we were about to continue walking, he stopped, tightening his grip on my hand. Even the air around us fell silent. My vision was blocked by the bridal veil, so I had no idea what was happening and looked up in confusion. Soon enough, I found out, Your Highness, the Crown Prince. In an instant, my palms became covered in a fine layer of sweat. Jiyu Huaijin subtly stepped in front of me, gently rubbing my wrist to reassure me that everything was all right. Xiao Chengjing's voice betrayed no emotion. I had just returned from inspecting the saltworks in Jiangnan when I heard of the heir of the Jiyu family's Wedding, I didn't have time to prepare a proper gift, so please accept this modest token. Gu Huaijin inclined his head slightly. Thank you, Your Highness, for your gracious gift. The wedding feast has begun. If you are not otherwise occupied, please do stay for a while. There's no need to stand on ceremony, my lord. Xiao Chengjing smiled casually, yet with a rare touch of sincerity. After all, it was only a matter of time before you and I became family. We have plenty of days ahead. I shall take my leave for today. I have urgent matters to report back at the palace. He was indeed also reborn, my tongue pressed firmly against my teeth. Tens of thousands of thoughts and possibilities flashed through my mind. He let me off today. He simply has no intention of letting me be his support again. Jiang Qingwu will soon get what she wishes for, yet all my past irreverent words were genuine and sincere. Xiao Chengjing is a duplicitous man who harbors grudges and seeks revenge for the slightest grievance. He let me off today because he was in a good mood. But that doesn't mean he'll let me off in the future. I need to find a way to bring him down from the position of Crown Prince. 13. The wedding ceremony ended quickly. I was alone in the room, rolling up my sleeves as I took off the bridal veil and phoenix crown to catch my breath. Before long, footsteps sounded again outside the door. In my previous life, on the day I was welcomed into the mansion as a concubine, I had gone hungry for an entire day and night. Xiao Chengjing deliberately treated me coldly, and I sat through the whole night with that heavy crown on my head, my neck nearly breaking. This is why I have experience. I had instructed Qinghe to secretly get some dumplings for us to eat, but I didn't expect her to return so soon, so fast. Did you bring any wine? Unable to wait, I walked over and opened the door. As soon as I did, the air fell silent. I found myself staring wide-eyed at Gu Huaijin, who was just about to push the door open. Bang! I slammed the door shut. I sat down on the bed and put the crown and the red veil back on. I forgot everyone knew that Gu Huaijin was surrounded by heavy troops, so who would dare force him to drink in public? After a long while, he pushed the door open again and came back in. The bridal veil was lifted, and I continued to stare blankly at him as he stared back at me. Are you hungry? He pointed at the food box on the table and asked softly. I had the small kitchen prepare something to eat. He paused, then added, but there's no wine in the courtyard. If you'd like a drink, you can have that for now. I'll send someone to buy some later. He was referring to the wine pot containing the nuptial wine. Isn't this against the rules? I swallowed nervously. No one will ever know. Gu Huaijin tempted me. I tried to refuse a bit longer, but Gu Huaijin had already brought the spicy beef to my lips. Open your mouth. I reluctantly opened my mouth, and the next moment, my frown completely relaxed. Delicious. His eyes curved into a smile. There's even better over there. Newlyweds who lock themselves away on their wedding night to feast on delicacies are likely unheard of. But I ate with great joy. I had never had anything that suited my taste so well. The entire Jiang family prefers light, bland flavors, and their food is utterly insipid. Later, after entering the palace, Xiao Chengjing's taste was exactly the same as the Jiang family's. I just loved the feeling of being spiced to tears. Had a great meal here. Gu Huaijin didn't drink a drop of alcohol, yet he ate heavy amounts of numbing spices and chili without batting an eye. The spiciness made me feel like breathing fire, and I tilted my head back to hold back tears. He poured me a cup of cold tea. After drinking it, I felt as if my whole life had been elevated. That's so delicious. I patted him on the thigh, exclaiming again and again, a taste that surpasses the gods. See, it's more satisfying when it's flavorful. He chewed on the spicy roasted meat and smiled. 14. After eating and drinking his fill, he sat back on the bed, and the air returned to silence. They exchanged a glance, then looked away in unison. I have no experience and don't know what else needs to be done on the wedding night apart from that. It seems Gu Huaijin doesn't know much about it either. I paused, took the wine pot that had remained untouched, poured myself a small cup, and then poured a cup of tea for Gu Huaijin, the union wine. I reminded him. Oh, he fumbled to lift his teacup. After finishing the drink, I looked up and saw that his face, which had remained utterly composed even while eating spicy food, had turned bright red. I began to suspect I had poured the wrong wine, but seeing how nervous he was, I felt less awkward myself. Instead, "Do you want to rest, Your Highness?" I said as I reached to undo his clothes. His eyelashes fluttered non-stop. Wait, my lady." I gasped and sat back. Actually, I had sensed something was off ever since Gu Huaijin remained unmoved by my rejection of Xiao Chengjing, but confirming it still made my heart skip a beat. He is also reborn even more, because he died early. He might have come back even sooner. Gu Huaijin realized he had misspoken and seemed to want to say something to me but held back. I paused for a moment and tentatively asked, "Brother-in-law." He quietly drew in a sharp breath. "You'd better not call me that," he said with some difficulty. "The truth is, I and your sister were never really husband and wife." I touched my nose. "I've heard a bit about it. In fact, I'd heard more than a bit. On the night before her wedding, Jiang Qingwu fled. She never even set foot through the door, let alone performed the ceremony. Although the news was suppressed, it was no secret among the nobles in the capital. My parents had me find a way to quell the public outcry officially. It was said that the heir of the Duke of Jing had a relapse of his old illness and fell into a coma, and that my eldest sister, overcome with worry, lost track of time while caring for him. Since the 3 letters and 6 rites had already been completed, the marriage was considered settled. The bride and groom have encountered many inconveniences, so let everyone share in the festive joy and let the matter rest here. My parents, of course, nodded repeatedly in agreement. Throughout the entire Marquis of Jing's manor, no one cared about the heir's wishes, and so the matter was hastily turned over and left behind. Sorry, after laying everything out, I felt as if I had become one of those who went along with the crowd and bullied him. If the prince divorces me over this, I have no complaints. He shook his head. We were each just playing our part. And what about now? What? I was confused. Are you willing to have a good life with me? Gu Huaijin looked at me earnestly. No need to guess what others are thinking. No need for scheming or putting on a forced smile. Do whatever you want to do. If the sky falls, we'll face it together. We share joy and anger, honor and disgrace. Let's live a good life together. Just live a good life. The red candles flickered, and the moonlight was bright and clear outside the courtyard. The feast was still going on. Laughter and chatter drifted in with the wind. Feeling distant as if from another life, I once played a masterstroke of manipulation at the very heart of power, yet his words left me dazed for a long time. I thought of the storybooks I read as a child. Jiang Qingwu sobbed her heart out over the line, "Only when mountains lose their peaks and heaven and earth merge, would I dare to part from you." The girl in the tale died in her beloved's arms. He was consumed by grief, vowed never to take another wife, and swore to seek her from the highest heaven to the deepest underworld. Jiang Qingwu vowed to find a man who would love her the way the husbands loved their wives in the stories, but my heart remained unmoved. Instead, my attention was caught by the anthology of flowers, which my mother had tossed aside. This book is about flower cultivation. The author only mentioned it briefly in the afterword. Her marriage to her husband was originally an accident, forced by a sudden family disaster. She had to travel to the capital to seek out her never-before-met fiancé. Her heart was full of anxiety and troubled by many worries. Unexpectedly, upon their first meeting, her husband-to-be lavished endless praise on the flower pinned in her hair, citing numerous poems and literary allusions just for that single blossom. Thinking he was a flower lover, she planted a courtyard full of flowers and plants after their marriage, yet her husband remained utterly indifferent. When they spoke of this matter in their old age, with hair turned gray, the old man blushed. He said that back then he had no idea what flower it was at all. He simply dared not look the young lady in the face. The reason I came to recognize all the flowers and plants in the world later on was that whenever she immersed herself in this pursuit, her eyes and brows radiated a spirited pride. Love is something you cultivate. Respect and responsibility go both ways. It's nothing more than whether a person is worth it. I've always been a good judge of people. In the previous life, I knew full well that Xiao Chengjing was not a worthy match, yet I still walked into the fire pit. I have already repaid the life I owe my parents. Heaven has granted me a chance to start over. I have no reason to give up on the life I want. I do. I looked up and said to Gu Huaijin with solemn sincerity, "I want to make things work with you. 15 When Jiyu Huaijin's mother passed away, her relationship with the Jingwa Duke's mansion was extremely strained. As a result, he now lives alone in a detached villa. Apart from this early marriage arranged by the late Madam, Jiyu Huaijin is not subject to the control of the Jingwa Duke's mansion. This saves me the trouble of having to go and pay my respects. The wife of Duke Jing sent people to invite me several times, but I am a person of my word. By making various excuses to refuse seeing her, I have already made my stance clear. On the second day after our wedding, I took Jiyu Huaijin to a shop outside to buy several sets of new clothes. His guard, Mo Chi, told me that the most skilled tailors in the capital were now all in our courtyard. I said it was not the same. Going out for a walk always makes a difference. 3 days later, when the clothes were ready, I took Jiyu Huaijin to pick them up in person. We also took the opportunity to visit the Lantern Fair and bought so many things that the carriage could barely hold them all. See, isn't it fun? Staying cooped up in a room won't help you recover. A square patch of sky only makes one feel more and more depressed. How fun! I've never seen anything like it before. That's why I brought you here. I started laughing again, feeling quite clever, until an untimely voice came from outside the carriage. Young heir Jiyu, Xiao. Chengjing's voice sounded extremely pleased. Jiyu Huaijin lifted the carriage curtain and turned sideways to shield me behind him. Is His Royal Highness the Crown Prince also going to the Lantern Festival? By the Emperor's decree, Jiyu Huaijin is exempt from bowing and paying respects when meeting royal family members. Xiao Chengjing smiled and shook his head. I'm going to propose marriage soon. Finally managing to snatch a moment of leisure, I came out to look at things women might like. Congratulations on your highness's joyous occasion. The heir is still so courteous with me. As I have said, I may yet have to rely on your care and support in the future. Your highness flatters me. Xiao Chengjing looked at him, amusement deepening in his eyes. The day after tomorrow is my birthday, yet I hear you have declined the banquet invitation. My wife is ill, which makes things inconvenient. Xiao Chengjing inexplicably revealed an understanding expression. No wonder she's so obedient, given that your esteemed wife is ill. In that case, I cannot force matters against your will. Even as he left, he sounded to be in quite a good mood. When the carriage set off again, I was still in a daze. Jiyu Huaijin lowered the carriage curtain and asked me what I was thinking. It was a long while before my furrowed brow relaxed. I asked him, have there been any rumors lately about Prince Rui returning to the capital? Jiyu Huaijin shook his head. 16 Indeed, in my previous life, as soon as I was engaged to Xiao Chengjing, I discovered Prince Rui's reckless rebellion. The Prince of Ding was older but mediocre and weak, although the Crown Prince was born of the Empress, but the Empress came from a prestigious family, and with the intricate web of connections and intertwined interests among such families, she was not fully committed to helping Xiao Chengjing ascend the throne. Instead, she wanted him to endure hardships early on, so that he would be easier for them to control later. Only Prince Rui, Xiao Chengheng, had the backing of his uncle, the general who guards the nation, and his birth mother, Consort Li, who was then in favor. Xiao Chengheng had long been discontent. First, he secretly smuggled armor into the capital under Prince Ding's name, then had several elite squads enter the city disguised as merchants, waiting to coordinate from within when the time came. But as I had become the prince's secondary consort, I inevitably had more dealings with the imperial household. While talking with the Princess of Ding, I noticed that the weight of the items sent by her family over these days did not match the actual number of carriages she had dispatched. Why was it so coincidental that her family's messengers arrived just as I visited? That became the unspoken understanding between me and the princess. I told Xiao Chengjing about this, and then we discovered that batch of armor. He offered advice when the other was still uncertain. Send a message in His Majesty's name to Xiao Chengheng, saying that Consort Li is critically ill and that he must enter the palace to attend to her, then ambush and kill him on the way, conceal his death, dispatch someone with a forged letter to his fief, stating merely that Prince Rui has been defeated in his rebellion, and that if he abandons darkness for light now, there is still a glimmer of hope, thereby obtaining a confession of Prince Rui's defeat. Finally, bring the witness, the evidence, and the rebellious Prince's corpse to the Golden Throne Hall, unnecessary casualties were avoided, and the predetermined final outcome was reached, flawless. The Crown Prince remains the supreme Crown Prince, but Xiao Chengjing, having been reborn, made no move. Only one possibility remains. He is regretting it. He killed Xiao Chengheng too early in his previous life, failing to make the most of him. He should have waited until Xiao Chengheng had slaughtered the aristocratic families, and then let the Crown Prince step in as a savior. That way, the rebellious prince would also die, and the families that survived would venerate Xiao Chengjing as a deity. It took me half a lifetime of struggle to solve problems that could be settled just by letting Xiao Chengheng in to kill a few people, and then everything would be resolved. I slowly shifted my gaze to Jiyu Huaijin's face. I need you, the heir, to do something for me. Will you help or not? Go ahead. The heir apparent spent his entire previous life avoiding affairs. Would he be willing to enter officialdom for me, assist Prince Ding in claiming the throne, and help him play the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind? This matter is certainly perilous, but I am confident, as long as I'm willing. He interrupted me with a soft laugh. No need to explain so much. I was stunned for a moment. He held my hand and said, "You and I are husband and wife. You speak, and I act. It's as simple as that. If we succeed, it's because you foresaw it all, and if we fail," I murmured. The gentle smile on Jiyu Huaijin's face faded as he looked at me intently. "Then it is my incompetence." 17. Although Jiyu Huaijin had a gentle temperament, he was no fool, having firmly held the position of heir to the Jingwa Duke Manor for decades in a den of wolves and tigers. Moreover, the Princess of Ding was decisive, resolute, and ambitious. At the dining table, the Prince of Ding, though alarmed and shaking his head repeatedly, was coaxed, deceived, and threatened by others, and was quickly maneuvered onto the same path as us. But over here, things were proceeding in an orderly manner. Over there, Xiao Chengjing had yet again stirred up trouble. He stormed out of his own birthday banquet, publicly giving the Empress a dressing down. Just moments after telling the Empress that he wanted to propose marriage, he turned around and refused to acknowledge it. It wasn't until I returned to my family home that I heard Jiang Qingwu failed to become the crown princess. She got a bit upset over it and fainted from anger. Right at the crown prince's birthday banquet, the marriage had been all but settled. Everyone in the capital knew Wu was to be the crown princess. Who would have expected the crown prince to suddenly go back on his word? The Empress doesn't want to be accused of breaking her word, so she took the lead in making your sister the crown prince's secondary consort. Though she would be the crown prince's secondary consort, she would still be a concubine. With your sister's temperament, how could she ever be willing to play second fiddle? Without sufficient status to support her, who knows how badly she might be bullied in the future. In just 2 days, Mother has grown haggard with worry. Clearly, taking care of Jiang Qingwu has not been easy for her. That's a good thing, I said lazily. A good thing? How could that possibly be a good thing? I gestured, and my mother leaned in. Our eldest sister is marrying into the royal family. The royal family, not just any ordinary nobles. So what? If she becomes the crown princess, or even the empress, as long as her child becomes the next emperor, what does anything else matter? Keep your voice down. My mother stopped me, frowning. What you said is treasonous, but it is also true. However, the crown prince publicly disgraced her. How can you tell that he loves your eldest sister so much that he would willingly make her child the heir? I stared at my mother for a long moment, then suddenly smiled. No wonder, Mother, you really are just like my eldest sister. Of course, your sister is my own flesh and blood. How could she not be like me? She paused, then added, not just your sister, you are the same. I did not respond to her words. It is difficult to be the emperor, but even more so to be the crown prince. The current court is unstable. Prince Ding deliberately hides his sharp edges. Prince Rui watches like a hawk, and even the queen's own family is not wholly devoted to supporting the crown prince. Given such perilous circumstances, it is precisely because the crown prince truly loves and respects our eldest sister that he must deliberately act this way. If everyone knew how much the crown prince cherishes our eldest sister and that she is his weakness, that would truly put her in grave danger. Mother was completely convinced by me. But the secondary consort is appointed by the queen. So what if she is appointed by the queen? Has Xiao Chengjing ever refused? Mother, stop overthinking. If you tell this to our eldest sister, she will recover from her illness at once. The mother looked as if a sudden realization had dawned on her. Feeling that it was about time, I nodded to my mother and said to Mochi, I'm done. Go tell the prince's heir that we're going home. Mochi nodded. I clapped my hands and was just about to get up when my mother called out to me. Tanga, you've finally come back. Won't you even stay for lunch with me? No thanks. The food in the mansion isn't that great. She hesitated for a moment, as if wanting to say something. But in the end, nothing came out. I didn't care what she had to say either. But just as I stepped out of the room, Qinghe came rushing straight toward me. What are you doing? All in such a hurry, miss? Qinghe's face was grave, and he deliberately lowered his voice. This is bad. The crown prince has arrived. 18 indeed. This was bad, but what I considered bad, and what she considered bad, were not the same thing. Why are you afraid of the crown prince? It's not like he's going to eat you. Exactly, his immediate priority was not me. Moreover, who in the capital doesn't know that Xiao Chengjing and I have never had any involvement? Could he really barge into my residence with a sword in plain sight and stab me to death? I'm not afraid. But miss, it's all right, let's go, we're heading back now. I completely forgot about my mother and just wanted to leave this place as quickly as possible, but fate had other plans. Destiny always likes to play tricks on people, doing everything it can to push the very person you least want to see right in front of you. As soon as I stepped out of the room, I nearly bumped right into Xiao Chengjing. Fortunately, the art of putting on airs had long been so deeply ingrained in my bones that it came as naturally as breathing. I quickly put some distance between myself and Xiao Chengjing. Greetings, Your Highness the Crown Prince. With that, I tried to slip away, but Xiao Chengjing firmly blocked my path. I stood before him, steeling myself, and let his burning gaze bore into me. Your Highness, I continued, steeling myself and lowering my voice, if you and your mother have matters to discuss, it would not be appropriate for me to intrude. I shall take my leave. Finally, he spoke. His voice was hoarse, carrying a tone more complex than any I had ever heard. I heard you were ill. It was just a minor cold, and it has already healed. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. Oh, but Jiu Huaijin said you were very ill, so ill that you couldn't go anywhere or see anyone. A cold is indeed nothing serious for me, Your Highness, but my husband's concern clouds his judgment. For him, it is different. Husband? Xiao Chengjing suddenly let out a mocking laugh. Call me that again. This humble wife is terrified. You, terrified? Since when are you ever terrified? What do you have to be terrified of? Even her mother, dull as she was, could sense the tension in the air. Your Highness, this must be a misunderstanding. Tanga has been well behaved since childhood and has never crossed paths with you, nor has she done anything to offend you. I lowered my head, unable to see the expression on Xiao Chengjing's face. I just felt that this person must have taken the wrong medicine today. Nothing he said or did was proper for his status. Never intersected. He suddenly reached out a hand and grabbed my face, holding it with an unbreakable force that forced me to meet his gaze. His deep, dark eyes seemed almost to suck me in. Didn't you say you'd kill me every time you saw me? Now I'm standing right in front of you, ready to let you kill me. Why haven't you struck yet? Something slid out from his sleeve. It was the sharp blade Xiao Chengjing used to protect himself. 19. My heart churned like a raging sea. The next second, the pressure on my face was gone. Jiu Huaijin took my hand and pulled me behind him. Your Highness, what is the meaning of this? My wife has never even used a fruit knife at home, let alone killed anyone. If Your Highness has mistaken her for someone else, remember that debts have their debtors and wrongs their wrongdoers. Do not harm the innocent. Xiao Chengjing lifted his eyelids, his eyes filled with undisguised gloom and malice. Fortunately, I understood the implication behind Jiu Huaijin's words immediately. I put on an innocent and aggrieved look of shock and said, I truly have no idea how I have offended the Crown Prince to deserve such a catastrophic disaster. Xiao Chengjing did not speak again. He looked down in thought for a long while, then smiled lightly as if nothing had ever happened. It was indeed a misunderstanding. I was just joking, my lady. Since nothing is wrong, I'll take my leave now." As she left, she seemed to remember something and said to her mother, "The matter between me and the eldest daughter of the Jiang family was also a misunderstanding. The Jiang family may ask for any compensation they wish, I will not marry her." And so he came inexplicably and left just as. Inexplicably, the mother stood there, stunned. "I can't be bothered to care." 20. I don't know if Xiao Chengjing saw through my clumsy act, but I can pretend forever in front of him anyway. Soon I won't have to see him anymore. I remained preoccupied all the way until I got into the carriage. Meeting Xiao Chengjing left me mentally exhausted and with a worried frown, as if I had aged another 10 years. I forgot, I'm no longer that girl of 17 or 18. Jiu Huaijin gently held my hand, and my tightly furrowed brow instantly relaxed. "Don't be afraid, we're in this together, it'll be okay." He is always serious every time he says things like that. Every time I hear him say things like that, I can't help but want to laugh. This time is no different, and once again I break into a joyful smile. He doesn't understand what I'm laughing at, yet he still curls up the corners of his mouth along with me. The next second, he stood frozen on the spot. I sat on his lap, wrapped my arms around his neck, and kissed him. After a light, fleeting kiss, I sighed and said to Jiu Huaijin, "Actually, I'm not afraid of dying, nor of competing with others." "Then what are you afraid of?" "I'm afraid I'm not worth it. I'm afraid of walking alone into the darkness, afraid of reaching a dead end with no one willing to lend me a hand." I lowered my eyes, cradled his face in my hands, and said softly, "But now, it's all worth it." Jiu Huaijin's Adam's apple moved slightly, his voice hoarse. "Why?" "Because I met you. The 7 days I spent with you were the happiest 7 days of my 2 lifetimes. Thank you, my husband." His eyes instantly turned red, and it was a long time before he could speak in a choked voice. "Me too." 21. Jiu Huaijin was not originally meant to be so frail and sickly. His mother and the empress were cousins because the empress was feeling depressed during her pregnancy. Lady Jiu, who was 8 months pregnant herself, entered the palace to cheer her up. She unintentionally drank the poisoned ginseng soup before the empress could. She died with her last ounce of strength. She gave birth prematurely. It was considered saving the empress's life. Consequently, Jiu Huaijin received many trivial favors. Although he had been plagued by illness since birth, he showed no signs of premature aging, especially given his temperament. Why would I get so angry over an insignificant woman if it's not an illness? The only other possibility is poison. When I asked Jiu Huaijin, he had already suspected as much. In the previous life, his marriage to Jiang Qingwu existed in name only. At that time, Jiang Qingwu indulged in sensual pleasures and immersed herself in hedonism. After marriage, her belly had been swollen for 5 months, and she didn't know whose child she was carrying. The marriage contract his late mother had made with others was not something he could easily go back on. When Jiang Qingwu brought up the matter herself, he naturally felt relieved, but as soon as the brush touched the paper, a sudden sharp pain struck his internal organs. The blood he vomited soaked the divorce agreement. Jiang Qingwu fell to the ground in terror, muttering to herself how this could happen. The shock also caused her to miscarry the child. Jiu Huaijin opened his eyes and found himself back 10 years ago. I only needed a moment of thought to arrive at the answer. The poison had been placed on the divorce document. As soon as the scroll was unrolled, the poison would take effect. This was a unique method used by powerful aristocratic families to dispose of useless spies. A mind like Jiang Qingwu's could never come up with such a malicious scheme. There was only one person who knew of such a method and could persuade Jiang Qingwu to go along with it: Xiao Chengjing. The child in Jiang Qingwu's womb might be his, or might not, but regardless of whether it is or not, the world must not be made to think so. He deceived Jiang Qingwu, leading her to mistakenly believe that the medicine would cloud one's mind, forcing Jiu Huaijin to acknowledge that child in reality. Though, as long as Jiu Huaijin is dead, this matter will become even more impossible to verify, leaving no room for suspicion. My expression turned serious. The Prince of Rui is planning to stage a rebellion any day now. Now that Xiao Chengjing and the Jiang family have fallen out like this, does he no longer need my father's help? No, that's what he needs. My father is the head of the civil officials, and his students are scattered throughout the court. He is the easiest person for Xiao Chengjing to win over and the most useful for consolidating the imperial court. What would Xiao Chengjing do? A guess formed in my mind. If Jiang Qingwu were to attempt to assassinate Prince Ding and the plot were exposed, the Jiang family, having no other options, would have no choice but to turn to him for refuge. I slowly turned to look at Jiyu Huaijin. He nodded at me and said, "I have already informed Her Highness the Princess. Anything sent from the Eastern Palace must not be opened, nor even touched. Also, Jiang Qingwu is not to be seen." "No." I shook my head and looked out the window at the plums ripening to yellow. "She must be seen, not only seen, but also closely guarded against, and treated as an honored guest. Let her reveal her weakness before arresting her, and then use the charge of implicating her entire clan, 9 degrees of kin, as leverage. Threaten the first assistant to make him work for us." 22 Jiang Qingwu quickly fell into the trap and was locked up in the dungeon of Prince Ding's mansion. It was said that she suffered a great deal. The princess of Ding told me, "Don't blame me for being ruthless, little sister. The worse her situation is now, the more the Grand Chancellor will understand how serious her offenses are, and what a great mercy it is that we are willing to let her off." The Prince of Ding was older, and his princess, Su Wanting, was also 7 or 8 years my senior. She showed me considerable care, and we addressed each other as sisters in private. I laughed. "Sister Tang, if you truly thought I would blame you, you wouldn't be in such fine spirits as to invite me for wine. You can't hide it from me." She clinked her glass against mine. "You have such a sharp and perceptive mind. I liked you the first time I saw you. Even if Jiang Qingwu tries to stir up trouble again, I wouldn't believe her. Affairs within the inner residence might fool others, but they can never fool me. Since Atang calls me sister, what harm is there in my venting a little on your behalf? In that case, I thank you, sister." The Princess of Ding waved her hand repeatedly. "No need for thanks. Without you and the heir, I and His Highness would have died several times over. I've said it before, Prince Rui is vicious, and the Crown Prince is suspicious. Once either ascends, they will never let us live. This is how the world works. Either you devour others, or you get devoured yourself. Sister, truly, you need not be so courteous. This is all due to my sister's own good karma." I looked at her, recalling that evening 10 years ago. This day in a past life I, too, raised my glass to her and smiled in passing. After a cup of wine, they become enemies, each going their own way and fulfilling their own duties. Back then, they never imagined they would reach where they are today. Then raising a glass with her to drink together once more. A gust of wind passes by from 10 years ago. I can smell it, the scent of gunpowder strangled in the cradle. 23 On the 7th day of the 7th month in the 10th year of Jingping, Prince Rui Xiao Chungheng, together with General Zhenghua Li Xiao, raised troops in rebellion. The rebel forces advanced with unstoppable momentum, reaching the imperial capital in just 6 days. Every general sent against them died a gruesome death. In the capital, the prince's shadow corps ran rampant, assassinating key court officials at will. Everyone at court was in a state of panic. But who would have expected the crown prince to take action and wipe out the rebel forces in one stroke? With the rebellion of Prince Rui put down, Xiao Chengjing's first move was to surround the residence of Duke Jinghua. It would be no trouble at all for him to pin the charge of colluding with rebels on Jiyu Huaijin. I was locked in my room. I don't know whether King Ding will succeed first or disaster will strike first. Xiao Chengjing walked in just like that. I still maintained the most basic courtesy. "Your Royal Highness the Crown Prince." He dismissed everyone and naturally walked up to me. His expression was as weary as mine used to be. It seemed these days of painstaking scheming had not been easy on him either. "Honor the promise you made to me, and I will spare him. Your Highness, forgive me. This humble wife is too dull to understand what you are talking about." Xiao Chengjing closed his eyes deeply. When he opened them again, there was a hint of softness and concession. "The matter back then, it was my uncle who courted Jiang Qingwu, pinning on her his last hope for the resurgence of the aristocratic families. I wanted to keep her by my side, to round up the remaining loyalists of my late mother once and for all. Later, when the truth came to light, before I could even make a move, Jiang Qingwu was reduced to a pool of blood by my uncle's men, leaving not even a corpse behind. Ah Tang, how difficult that throne is to sit on. Others may not understand me, but don't you understand me either? If it had been you, back then, threatened into betraying me, just the thought of it drives me mad. He pressed closer. Step by step I stepped back again and again, my expression indifferent, pretending to be a wooden stake that cannot understand human speech. Your Highness, from Your Highness to Your Majesty, for 10 years, Tang, you have never once called me husband. Actually, most of the time. There's no need for so many principles and formalities. If you were willing to set aside some of your reason, just as Consort De and the others do, there is nothing I wouldn't do for you. He stares intently at my expression, his demeanor so powerless that he looks like a madman speaking to a deaf person. After that matter is settled, I will make you the empress. The edict for your coronation has already been drafted and is waiting in the Taiji Hall. There was still room for maneuver. There was still room for maneuver. You were carrying a child at the time, why didn't you tell me? He closed his eyes deeply once more. This time, it was to hold back the tears threatening to betray his composure. Jiang Wanting, did you ever truly love me? 24. He looked at me with eyes full of despair yet still holding hope. I was not moved in the slightest. I don't understand what Your Highness is saying. Outside the door, orderly and rhythmic footsteps rang out, urgent and heavy. Accompanied by the clattering sound of armor plates colliding, the door was opened. The commander of the Imperial Guard had been replaced. I breathed a sigh of relief. It's done, Your Highness the Crown Prince, His Majesty requests your presence. Please come with me. Within the royal family, Xiao Chengjing was far from the only one plagued by suspicion. Since his rebirth, Xiao Chengjing has drawn too much attention. When it came to suppressing the rebel forces this time, no one else could do it, yet he stepped in and resolved the matter with ease. The Emperor, already full of suspicion in his heart, all that is needed is to capture Prince Rui's assassin in the capital, then pull out Prince Rui's real men from the Crown Prince's secret dungeon, and present them together before the Emperor. Was the Crown Prince naturally gifted and able to foresee all schemes, or did he harbor treacherous intentions early on and conspire with Prince Rui? Your Majesty will make the final judgment. 25. Just now it was pouring rain, but now it has finally stopped. The sunny weather urges flowers to bloom, warm and almost blazing. There's someone waiting for me in the yard. Xiao Chengjing turned his head and gave me one last look, his final glance at me for all eternity, but I didn't look at him. Only when I reached Jiu Huijin's side did I finally relax my tense heart. Tonight I want to eat 10 plates of spicy beef. He nodded solemnly. I want some too. Then I'll have 20 plates. Alright. Spring light sets the prelude, and all things hum in harmony. It is the perfect season to drink to one's heart's content. The end. That's the end of the first story. Don't go away. The next story is even more exciting. On the day my mother died by swallowing gold, the only words she left me were never to become a concubine to any man, but I was merely a lowly, concubine-born daughter, in the mansion, and in this murky world, it was not for me to choose my fate. To protect her own daughter, my legal mother sent me off in nothing but a worn-out little sedan chair to the deposed Crown Prince's residence. I was not carried in as a legitimate wife, only as a concubine, and a concubine from the household of a disgraced minister, one whose head could be lost at any moment. I was certain then that I would die. Who would have thought that the rumored ill-tempered deposed Crown Prince, covered in dust and looking utterly dejected, was squatting in the yard, nearly blowing up his only medicine pot. I had just turned 8 the year my mother passed away. Back then, my father was so infatuated with the new concubine just brought into the household that he no longer had any affection left for my mother. After hearing the servants report that my mother had swallowed gold, he came by for a look, mindful of their past affections. The heavy gold sat in her stomach. She died of internal injuries, yet her face showed no trace of pain or agony. My mother had always valued dignity. Before passing, she had neatly combed her hair and evenly applied her rouge. That single glance somehow softened my father's heart, and he shed a few tears of little consequence. Perhaps feeling a twinge of guilt, he immediately sent me off to grandmother's courtyard to settle in. That, after all, was my only haven inside that devouring manor. Too bad I wasn't a person blessed with fortune. My grandmother was busy looking for a suitable husband for me when she fell ill and passed away. The old lady had a sharp eye and only chose respectable families for me. Although the men might not hold high official positions, I would become the legitimate wife if I married into those families. Frustrated that I could not live up to her expectations, she took my hand and said, "Your mother was a loser all her life. No one forced her. She was foolish enough to bring about her own death. Since she chose to be a concubine and was carrying you in her belly, she should have gritted her teeth and fought for her place. Your legitimate mother simply brought in another respectable concubine to share his favor, and she couldn't bear it, whining about death day in and day out, with such lofty pride. She deserved to die." I kept my head lowered, not daring to make a sound in truth. In all these years after mother left, my heart has been filled with resentment. In the old days, though life was bitter, with mother around there was always a hint of sweetness to be savored. Now that she has let go and passed on, I am left alone to suffer in this world. I can't even find a place to cry. All the bitterness in my heart has to be swallowed down. 3. No sooner had my grandmother left than my stepmother stepped in. Before my marriage had even been settled, she flipped through the birth date cards my grandmother had left behind, and that smile on her lips, no matter how you looked at it, was full of sarcasm. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had been at odds for a lifetime. On the surface they were civil, but beneath it all was nothing but clashing daggers and swords. How could these families be worthy of you? After all, you are the second daughter of a minister's household. Even if you are born of a concubine, you still can't be married off to some penniless who hasn't even earned a proper title. I stood quietly to the side, eyes lowered, and obediently said, "Whatever mother decides, I see it as clear as day. That poor, provincial graduate may not even fancy me. My mother was a maidservant and didn't save a single bit of dowry for me. It's true my father is a minister, but in his eyes, I might as well not exist. Only grandmother truly cared for me for a few years, but now that she's gone, so has her favor, and with it, my last shred of hope." My stepmother, tapping her crimson-nailed fingertips on the table, smiled meaningfully and said, "Go back to your room and wait. The marriage is arranged. In a couple of days, someone will come in a sedan chair to carry you off." Carry me off? The disdain in the legitimate mother's eyes was practically spilling over. "What? You still harbor hopes of being a proper wife? Once you're through that door, you'll find out being a concubine in this household is far more respectable than being some commoner's wife out there." I didn't dare make a sound, but my heart sank. Was I unwilling to accept it? Definitely. Was I wronged? Of course, but in these grand households, countless children of concubines have lost their lives for no reason at all. The fact that I'm still alive and kicking is already a blessing from heaven. I knelt on the ground and kowtowed. "Thank you, mother," I thought. "As long as I'm alive, even if I have to live like a dog, I must make something of myself." For I was shut in the room for a full half-month. Half a month later, Mama Jew, who served my legitimate mother, pushed the door open, holding a set of attire in her hands. How shabby! The pink bridal veil, the wedding dress with stitches so coarse a horse could gallop through them, and then there was the groom, whom I hadn't even met at that moment. My nose twitched with a wave of sadness, and I nearly burst into tears, but I held them back with all my might. The tears of this lifetime were probably already shed dry on those pitch-dark nights long ago. Once she was in the small sedan chair, old Nurse Jew spoke outside the curtain in a sinister tone. "Second miss, you're to marry the deposed Crown Prince. You actually have the nerve to be addressed as Your Highness. If the Crown Prince hadn't fallen from power, the one who would be entering the palace as a consort today would be our first miss, Shenjiao. There's no way you'd be the one to pick up this leftover bargain. I don't know if this deposed Crown Prince will end up being beheaded or stripped of his title and exiled as a commoner. If you're lucky enough to be exiled, you might just barely keep your little life." I clutched the coarse fabric of the wedding dress tightly, my whole body turning cold. "Is this sending me to my death?" 5. The sedan chair stopped at the entrance of the Eastern Palace. Granny Jew and her crew tossed the chair aside and fled faster than hares. I was left standing there all alone outside the Eastern Palace. The Imperial Brocade Guards were everywhere, surrounding the place like an iron barrel. One of them went in to announce my arrival, then came back out and delivered the message coldly. His Highness said the Crown Princess is critically ill. Go in yourself. In the East Palace, there were neither red silk banners nor red lanterns, not even a single double happiness character. The Imperial Guard standing at the door had his hand on the hilt of his sword, his face grim and murderous. This was no wedding, it was clearly a funeral. I lowered my head, staring at the embroidered tips of my own shoes, and was led inside. After passing through several doors, I arrived at a reasonably impressive courtyard. The guiding guard stopped. I won't go in, you go on your own. The rest of the Eastern Palace is sealed off. Only the courtyard of the deposed Crown Prince and his consort is still accessible. Once you enter, there's no turning back. Without an imperial edict, no one can come out. I nodded, lifted my own veil, and stepped over the threshold. A violent, heartbreaking cough came from inside the room. In the courtyard, a man in thin undergarments was crouched on the ground, brewing medicine. His manner made it clear he was someone who had never done such rough work. He was all flustered, surrounded by a complete mess. The moment my fingertip touched the medicine pot, I was startled by the heat and quickly pulled my hand back. Looking around for a cloth, I walked over, rolled the red bridal veil in my hand into a long rope, and skillfully wrapped it around the handle of the medicine pot. Let me do it, Your Highness. Xiao Chengjing looked up at me with a stunned expression. Who are you? You're not Shen Jiao. Shen Jiao is the name of my legitimate elder sister, and also the secondary consort he was originally supposed to marry. Perhaps because I felt that since I'd ended up in this godforsaken place with only a few days left to live, I wasn't so afraid anymore. I am her half-sister. My name is Shen Suaning. Xiao Chengjing's gaze fell on my shabby wedding gown. His face instantly turned ashen, and the veins on his neck bulged with rage. The Shen family has gone too far. Now that I've fallen on hard times, you send a concubine's daughter to fool me, pass off a fake as the real one. Take a look at yourself in the mirror, see if you're even worthy. Shen Henian, you old bastard. Just wait until I rise again, I'll have your entire Shen family exiled. My face paled, but my hands didn't stop. I steadily poured the medicine into the bowl. The woman inside was coughing more and more urgently, as if she were about to cough up her very lungs. Then wait until you're back on your feet to say that. Crown Prince, I emphasized the words Crown Prince. Xiao Chengjing's face twisted with rage. Even you dare humiliate me. This is treason. The medicine is getting cold. That one sentence shut him up. Only then did he fall silent and follow me into the house. Inside, it was as cold as an ice cellar, with a stifling, deathly stillness in the air. On the bed lay a beautiful woman, her face pale and her body emaciated to the point of being skin and bones. She must be the Crown Prince's consort, Su Wanteng. She propped herself up and smiled weakly at me. You must be Yaroa, right? You've been through so much. The Shen family have kept their word even after what happened to His Highness. You haven't turned your backs on us. Xiao Chengjing snatched the medicine bowl from my hand and carefully fed her, though his tone was anything but gentle. Keep your word. Who do you think she is? She's that illegitimate daughter of the Shen family, old bastard. One of these days, I'll chop his head off. He turned his head and gave me a vicious glare. And you, get your ass back to the Shen family right now. Stop being an eyesore here. I didn't say anything, go back. What home do I even have to return to? Going back means death. Hanging on here might buy me a couple more days. I was just figuring out how to stay when Su Wanteng, lying in the hospital bed, spoke up. Your Highness, watch your words. What the Shen family did was indeed improper. But what fault does this girl have? She is the most pitiful one. Life as a concubine's daughter is already hard enough at home. Now that you've been deposed and your future is uncertain, the Shen family has sent her as a scapegoat, meaning they don't value her life at all. We're all wretched souls. Why take your anger out on her? I had expected to face the hostility and disdain of the legitimate wife, but instead, these were the words that awaited me. My eyes suddenly welled up, and tears fell like beads from a broken string. The pent-up grievances I had held in for so many days finally burst forth completely at that moment. It felt as if someone had finally stepped forward to speak a fair word on my behalf. Xiao Chengjing's expression shifted slightly, and the disdain in his eyes as he looked at me turned into something more complicated. Finally, he sighed and set the bowl down. Forget it. You may stay and look after the crown princess. Then he couldn't help muttering under his breath, "What's there to cry about? I haven't even shed a tear yet, Your Highness," Su Wanteng protested in a feigned reproach. "Fine, fine, I'll stop. Drink the medicine, drink the medicine." Watching the two of them so deeply in love, for the first time, I felt a twinge of envy. I guess I'm just not destined for that in this lifetime. For someone like me, to live to a ripe old age safely, have meat with every meal, and own a little shelter from the wind and rain that would already be ancestors looking out for me from beyond, this kind of fortune, being cherished in someone's palms, I wouldn't dare to dream of. I don't deserve it. 6. Coming out of the house, I rolled up my sleeves and tidied up Xiao Chengjing's yard, which had been left in a complete mess. With the Eastern Palace sealed off, the servants had either been arrested or had fled, leaving the couple as the only ones left. Looking at this empty yard, it really felt like the emperor had left them to fend for themselves after finishing the work. My stomach was growling with hunger, so I ducked straight into the small kitchen. There were some fresh vegetables in the kitchen, probably delivered daily, but this place was in even worse shape than the yard. A few dirty bowls were tossed into the pot, and inside them was a dark, sticky lump that I couldn't identify. It looked like paste. The firewood at the mouth of the stove fell out after burning halfway, surrounded by dry tinder for starting the fire. A moment's carelessness would be enough to set the whole kitchen ablaze. I was truly speechless. This crown prince is simply a complete idiot when it comes to daily life. After being deposed, he's worse off than even me, an unworthy daughter of a concubine. At least I can feed myself. He looks down on me. I haven't even complained that he's a burden yet. I quickly and neatly scrubbed the kitchen inside and out, stacked the firewood in separate piles, and used plant ash to create a fire break next to the kindling. Now even if sparks fly out, nothing will catch fire. I glanced at the ingredients and made a few home-style dishes: stir-fried pork, braised pork ribs, and vinegar-glazed cabbage, and then I made a tomato and egg drop soup. The rice was steamed so that each grain was distinct, its fragrance wafting straight into the nose. Considering that the crown princess is still unwell, I specially used a small pot to cook some congee for her. The minced meat was chopped very finely, cooked with tender baby bok choy, and finally a pinch of salt was added to enhance the flavor. The congee has released its creamy rice film, bubbling away with a hearty gudu that is already appetizing just by looking at it. I felt a thrill of being the king of my own mountain, and my mood lifted along with it, humming a little tune without realizing it. In the Shen household, a place as important as the kitchen was never one where I could have the final say all by myself. "What are you doing?" Xiao Chengjing suddenly shouted from the doorway, startling me so much that I nearly dropped the spoon in my hand. "Does this guy even make any sound when he walks?" "Cooking," I snapped back. He pursed his lips as he walked in, hands clasped behind his back like some lord surveying his domain, his gaze finally sticking stubbornly to the dishes on the table. His Adam's apple bobbed, but he still put up a brave front. "This petty household's way of cooking is simply ruining my fine ingredients." No sooner had he spoken than a loud rumble came from his stomach. I pretended to look concerned. "Is your highness about to have diarrhea?" His face instantly turned the color of a pig's liver, and his eyes went wide as saucers. Crass. "Now fetch me chopsticks and serve the rice." He came at just the right time. The meal was perfectly cooked. I brought out the steamed egg custard, served the rice, and poured the excess rice water into a bowl. "You go ahead and eat. I'm going to attend to the crown princess with her congee." Xiao Chengjing then noticed the inconspicuous little jar beside him. He was stunned for a moment, and that arrogant energy from just now suddenly deflated. "Go ahead, she hasn't had an appetite for days." I almost fell for his nonsense until Su Wanteng finished one bowl in one go, then asked me to refill it 2 more times, and in the end, looked like she wanted to lick the bottom of the pot clean. She wiped her mouth a little sheepishly with a handkerchief. "Why, you're really good at this." I seriously suspect that her being this sick isn't because she's frail, but simply because she's been starving, or perhaps she's been poisoned by Xiao Chengjing's terrible cooking. When I returned to the kitchen, I found Xiao Chengjing still sitting upright there, the food in front of him untouched. Somewhat puzzled, I said, "Your Highness, why aren't you eating?" "Afraid it's poisoned." He scowled and said awkwardly, Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up and serve the rice so we can eat together. Are you trying to starve me to death?" At that moment, my nose actually stung a little. I grinned and said, "Thank you, Your Highness, for waiting for me." He grunted and was about to reach his chopsticks toward the pork rib he had been eyeing for a while. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing voice came from outside, like fingernails scraping against a blackboard. "An imperial edict has arrived. The deposed crown prince and the deposed crown princess receive the decree at once." Xiao Chengjing's face went pale in an instant, his hand trembled, and the rib he had just picked up fell onto the table with a slap. My heart also sank to the depths of despair. 7. The eunuch's shrill, piercing voice echoed through the empty courtyard, giving people a throbbing headache. Xiao Chengjing's already unpleasant face now looked even more ashen. As if he had just been dug out of the earth, he stood frozen, his knees seemingly rusted, unable to bend at all. It was Su Wantang who forced herself up, moving out from the room, pulling his sleeve, and tugging me down. "To kneel as well, by the grace of heaven, the emperor decrees, the deposed crown prince, Xiao Chengjing, having forsaken virtue and transgressed the way, shall henceforth be stripped of his royal lineage and reduced to a commoner. He is ordered to move this very day to the Cold Kill to the west of the imperial mausoleum, where he shall be responsible for sweeping and guarding the tombs, and shall not return to the capital without an imperial summons. Respect this decree." The eunuch, having finished reading, tossed the imperial decree to the ground and gave a snorted grunt, nostrils skyward. "Commoner Xiao, accept the decree. This is His Majesty's mercy, sparing your life." Xiao Chengjing stared fixedly at the bright yellow scroll on the ground, his eyes so bloodshot they looked ready to bleed. Veins bulged on the back of his hand as his fingernails dug into the dirt. It was a long moment before he managed to force out through clenched teeth, "I thank His Majesty for his gracious mercy." After the eunuch left, the courtyard fell into a deathly silence. Xiao Chengjing suddenly sprang to his feet and kicked over the stone bench beside him. "Guard a tomb, a cold kill. Is that any place for a person to live? My own father is trying to hound me to death." I silently walked over, picked up the imperial edict from the ground, and brushed off the dirt. "Your Highness, save your energy. Since we're to move today, we need to pack quickly. There's surely nothing in the Cold Kill, so we must take everything from this courtyard that we can." Xiao Chengjing looked at me in disbelief. "You still have the heart to pack." I don't want to live anymore." With that, he moved to dash his head against the pillar. Su Wantang's face turned even paler from fear, and clutching her chest, she looked about to faint. Quick as a flash, I grabbed Xiao Chengjing's belt and yanked him backward. "Don't be fooled by my thin frame. The strength I've built up doing rough work in the inner courtyard over the years is no joke." Xiao Chengjing stumbled from my pull and landed hard on the ground, wincing in pain. "What are you doing?" I looked down at him from above and sneered. "You want to die? That's easy. The knife is right there in the kitchen. Slitting your throat would be quick, but if you die, what happens to Sister Wanying? And what happens to me? Your dear brother is just waiting to see us make a fool of ourselves. The moment you're gone, we'll be buried right along with you. If you're a man and truly want to die, settle us both first before you go. Otherwise, you're nothing but a coward." Xiao Chengjing was stunned. He had probably never been yelled at like that, with a finger pointed at his nose. In his entire life, Su Wantang was also taken aback. Then her eyes reddened. She walked over and gently held Xiao Chengjing's head. "Your Highness, Anyan is right. We have to survive." Xiao Chengjing's body trembled. Finally, he stopped resisting, buried his face in his hands, and sobbed. I didn't have time to watch him get all sentimental, so I turned and went into the house. Moving, now that's a task that takes real skill. On the way to the Imperial Mausoleum, the guards escorting us watched us as if we were thieves, but seeing the pile of junk we had in the cart, they couldn't be bothered to search it. I loaded onto the cart every usable pot, pan, bowl, and ladle from the Eastern Palace, along with the bedding and clothing, and even that half bag of leftover rice. Xiao Chengjing sulked the entire way. Huddled in a corner without saying a word, Su Wantang was frail, jostled until her face turned pale, and she dozed off leaning against my shoulder. When we arrived and I took a look, My heart sank more than halfway. This so-called cold kill is nothing but a cave apart from having a door frame. Inside it's pitch black and stinks of mold. Forget about a bed. There isn't even a single chair. This is where I'm supposed to live. Xiao Chengjing stood at the entrance, his calves trembling. What else? Should I roll out a red carpet for you? I tossed the bundle onto the ground and rolled up my sleeves. All right, don't just stand there. If you don't want to freeze tonight, go gather some firewood. Xiao Chengjing pointed at his own nose. You want me to go gather firewood? Suit yourself. But don't blame me for not warning you if you freeze to death tonight. I ignored him, then turned to help Su Wanting find a clean large stone to sit on. I also took a thick coat from the bundle and draped it over her. Sister, rest here for a while. I'll go inside and tidy up. Though this cold kill was dilapidated, at least the space was fairly large. I gathered some dry straw, spread it on the ground, and laid out the bedding I'd brought, barely managing to make a nest of sorts. He set up a few more stones at the entrance and placed the chipped iron work on top of them. Xiao Chengjing dawdled for a long time before finally bringing back an armful of damp branches. I've gathered them. He tossed the branches to the ground, wearing an expression that clearly begged for praise. I took one look and couldn't help but laugh in exasperation. Your Highness, this is wet wood. Do you think it will light? Are you trying to smoke us out? Xiao Chengjing's face turned red, and he stiffened his neck, saying, "And I'll go change." Watching his clumsy retreating figure, I shook my head helplessly. This deposed crown prince still has a long way to go on the path of reform. And so, day by day, life stumbled along as best it could. The imperial mausoleum was truly a remote place. For miles around, you couldn't spot a single soul aside from the old eunuchs guarding the tombs. Only the mountain crows remained. The rice and flour we'd brought were clearly running low. Xiao Chengjing spent his days either sweeping the grounds at the imperial mausoleum or staring blankly at the wall when he returned, muttering things like "Time waits for no man and heaven is unjust." I watched this with growing anxiety in my heart. If this continued, before the emperor even issued a decree, the three of us would starve to death. That morning, I cooked the last bit of rice into porridge and set it on the table, which was nothing more than a large stone slab. The rice is gone. I tapped the edge of my bowl. After this meal, the next one will have to be wind soup. Xiao Chengjing's hand trembled, almost making his chopsticks fall. Then, what do we do? Isn't anyone sending us supplies? In your dreams? I rolled my eyes. We're commoners now, not on vacation. I've been thinking, there's a patch of wasteland in the back hills. We'll have to grow something ourselves. Also, I saw a small town at the foot of the mountain, not far from here. We could find some forest products to sell. Sell things. Xiao Chengjing jumped up. This royal personage, how could I become a peddler? That's the lowest of the low. Even the lowest of trades is better than starving to death. I slammed my chopsticks down on the stone. If you don't want to do it, fine. Then stay home and take care of your sister. I'll go. Su Wanting spoke up at that moment. Her voice was soft, but carried a firm resolve. Your Highness, Ainyan has endured every hardship for the sake of this family. We cannot keep holding her back. Dignity is worth nothing when it comes to staying alive. Xiao Chengjing looked at Su Wantang's gaunt face, gritted his teeth, and as if steeling himself for a monumental decision, said, "Fine, then we'll do it." I refuse to believe that I, Xiao Chengjing, can't even be a decent peddler. 9. Do it as soon as you decide. I discovered that although the area around the imperial mausoleum was desolate, because no one dared to come, there was no shortage of wild game and wild vegetables in the mountains. For half a month, I took Xiao Chengjing deep into the woods. At first, this lord would jump 3 feet high at the mere sight of a caterpillar. Later, in order to catch a pheasant, he could lie motionless in the grass for a full hour, his head and face covered in grass clippings. I wasn't idle either. I cultivated a small plot of land in front of the cold kill and planted some small cabbages and radishes. As Su Wantang's health improved a bit, she helped with sewing and mending, and also wove some delicate little baskets from the wildflowers I gathered. It was a sunny day when I first went to the town market. Xiao Chengjing and I carried our baskets on our backs, which held a few wild rabbits, a pile of wild mushrooms, and a basket woven by Su Wantang. When we arrived at the market, It was bustling with noise and excitement. Xiao Chengjing shrank his neck, wishing he could bury his head in his pants, terrified of being recognized. Start hawking. I nudged him with my elbow. If you don't shout, how will anyone know what you're selling? Xiao Chengjing's face turned a deep shade of purple, his lips quivered for a long while, and then he muttered under his breath like a mosquito buzzing, selling rabbits. Even the uncle selling sesame cakes next to him couldn't hear. I sighed, cleared my throat, and summoned energy from my core. Hey, don't miss out if you're passing by. Fresh wild rabbits, so plump they're dripping with fat. Newly picked wild mushrooms so fresh they'll make your eyebrows fall off. That shout drew the attention of everyone around. Several elder women gathered around. Miss, how much for these rabbits? I smiled as we haggled, swiftly weighing the rabbits and collecting the money. Xiao Chengjing watched in stunned silence. By the time we packed up the stall, our bamboo basket was empty, and we had several strings of copper coins in hand. Xiao Chengjing held those few copper coins in his hands, and they were trembling. This was probably the first time in his life that he had earned money by his own efforts. Anian, he suddenly looked at me, his eyes sparkling. With this money, can we buy a roast chicken to take back and nourish Su Wantong? My heart softened, and I smiled. And nodded. All right, and a jug of wine too. Let's have a good meal tonight. That evening, laughter, long absent, finally returned to the cold kill. Xiao Chengjing had a bit to drink and grew more talkative, not with scholarly platitudes, but with animated excitement as he recounted how he had strenuously reasoned with the old woman buying the basket that day. Watching their faces, illuminated by the firelight as he and Su Wantong laughed, I suddenly felt that maybe this life wasn't so hard to bear after all. Soon it turned to winter. The winter at the Imperial Mausoleum was bitterly cold, with gusts of wind howling straight into the cave dwelling. Although we had stored some grain and firewood, it was still barely enough to get through the winter. Worst of all, Su Wantong's illness had relapsed. Coughing kept me awake all night, my face burning as red as fire. I searched every pocket and only found a few copper coins saved from selling wild produce, nowhere near enough to call a doctor or buy medicine. Xiao Chengjing paced anxiously on the ground, his eyes rimmed red. It's all my fault for being useless. I've dragged Weining down with me. I gritted my teeth and pulled something out from inside my robe. That was a jade pendant. The quality wasn't top tier, but it wasn't bad either. This is the only memento my mother left me. I hid it in the sole of my shoe and brought it out with me back then. Take this to the pawnshop in town. I pressed the jade pendant into Xiao Chengjing's hand. Sell it outright. Get whatever you can for it. Xiao Chengjing was stunned. Stop talking nonsense. Saving people is what matters. Xiao Chengjing clutched the jade pendant tightly and dropped to his knees before me with a thud. Unyan, no words can express my gratitude. From now on, my life belongs to you. Startled, I quickly pulled him to his feet. You're making me feel ashamed. Now go. Xiao Chengjing scrambled away in a panic. I stayed by Su Wantong's bedside, swapping out her cold towel. She groggily opened her eyes, and when she saw me, tears streamed down from the corners of her eyes. Anian, don't do this for me. Shut up and save your strength to get better. I tucked her in gruffly when Xiao Chengjing returned. He brought not only medicine and a doctor but also several gin of charcoal and 2 thick cotton quilts. The doctor diagnosed it as a cold that had penetrated the body, compounded by a weak constitution, requiring proper care. After taking the medicine, Su Wantong finally fell into a peaceful sleep. I stayed by the brazier with Xiao Chengjing, watching the flickering flames. The jade pendant was pawned for 50 taels. Xiao Chengjing said in a low voice, I will definitely redeem it. That can wait. I used the fire tongs to stir the charcoal. I've been thinking that relying solely on selling mountain goods isn't a long-term solution. The mountain paths are blocked in winter, so we need to think of another way to make a living. Xiao Chengjing looked up at me. Do you have any ideas? I've noticed that the Drunken Immortal Tavern in town does good business, but their dishes are average. I narrowed my eyes. I want to give it a try, see if I can sell them a few recipes, or simply go work there as their head chef. Xiao Chengjing frowned. That won't do. You're a woman, showing your face in public like that. Your Highness, I interrupted him. We are commoners now. The real priority is staying alive. Besides, it would be such a shame to let my skill go to waste. 11. As it turned out, my skill was not wasted after all. The Drunken Immortal Tavern, the largest establishment in town, was run by a proprietor who knew what was good. A simple serving of dompa braised pork and a plate of squirrel-shaped mandarin fish completely conquered his palate. The proprietor made an on-the-spot decision to hire me as head chef, 10 taels of silver a month, plus a year-end bonus in this town. That was a high salary. But I have one condition: I won't work fixed office hours. I'll only do the lunch shift each day and need to go home in the afternoon. The shopkeeper found it odd, but for the sake of the food, he agreed, and so I began my working life, leaving early and returning late each day. Xiao Chengjing kept himself busy as well. Although he couldn't do heavy labor, he had excellent handwriting. He set up a stall in town, specializing in writing letters and couplets for people, and occasionally helping them draw portraits. Business was dismal at first, but later people discovered that this scholar Xiao had beautiful handwriting and spoke in an elegantly refined manner, and gradually business began to flourish. Our humble, run-down cave dwelling gradually began to change as well. Additional tables, chairs, and stools were brought in, the curtain at the door was replaced with a thicker one, and an old hen was even bought to lay eggs for Su, wanting every day to nourish her health. As Su Wantong's health improved, she began managing the household, keeping the humble cave dwelling tidy and well organized. Sometimes, when I came back from work and saw the cooking smoke rising from the cave entrance, along with Xiao Chengjing waiting at the door, I felt a strange sense of contentment in my heart. So this is what you call home, isn't it? 12. But the good times did not last long that day. As soon as I arrived at the restaurant, I sensed something was off. The shopkeeper wore a worried look, and several scruffer-looking men were sitting in the main hall. It was clear they had come to cause trouble. Yo, so this is that female chef. The scar-faced man at the front looked at me sideways. Not bad looking. How about coming back with me to be my concubine? My face cold, I replied, if you're here to eat, please take a seat. If you're here to cause trouble, the Yarman is to the left out the door. Yarman, Scarface roared with laughter. In this greenbull town, I am the Yarman. I heard you're a relative of the deposed crown prince. What, now that his highness has fallen, you've come out to sell yourself? My heart skipped a beat. Our identities have been exposed. I suppose so. Walls have ears. After all, mind your tongue. I grabbed the cleaver from the chopping board and slammed it down hard. Eat if you want to, and if you don't, get the hell out. Scarface's expression shifted. Just as he was about to lash out, a cold, clear voice suddenly came from the doorway. Is it the rule of Qingyo Town to abduct a woman in broad daylight? I looked up and was stunned. At the door stood an embroidered uniform guard. Though dressed in civilian clothes, his murderous aura was impossible to hide. Behind him, a middle-aged man slowly walked in, dressed in a long ink-black robe, prayer beads in hand. His face was refined and scholarly, yet carried a commanding aura that inspired instinctive awe. At the sight of the newcomer, the scar-faced man went weak in the knees and thudded to the ground, pleading, mercy, master." The middle-aged man didn't even glance at him. He walked straight up to me, his gaze sweeping over my face before finally settling on my hands. They were hands covered in calluses and frostbite scars. "Are you Shen Suaning?" I gripped the kitchen knife warily. "Who are you?" The man smiled, a hint of deeper meaning in his expression. "I am an old acquaintance of your young master's. I heard he was here and came especially to see him." An old acquaintance. Alarms went off in my mind. Xiao Chengjing's old acquaintances either wanted to kill him or use him. "We don't know any old acquaintances," I said flatly. "You've mistaken us for someone else." The man wasn't bothered. He found a table and sat down on his own. "Since I'm here, I might as well try the lady's cooking. I hear your dompa pork is exceptional. I'll have a serving." I hesitated for a moment, then turned and entered the kitchen. "If it's fortune, you cannot avoid it. If it's misfortune, you cannot escape it." 13. That day, that man ate an entire large bowl of red braised pork before leaving. He left behind an ingot of gold, along with a few words. "Tell Xiao Chengjing that the winter solstice is in a few days. Remember to offer incense to our ancestors." Holding that ingot of gold, my palms broke out in a cold sweat. Back at the humble cave dwelling, I told Xiao Chengjing about this. After hearing this, Xiao Chengjing's face turned pale instantly. A black robe, holding Buddhist prayer beads. That is my imperial uncle, Prince Regent Xiao Hongyuan, the Prince Regent, the legendary Prince Regent who holds immense power and is feared even by the Emperor himself. What does he want? Su Wanting asked nervously. Xiao Chengjing sat slumped in his chair. I don't know. Back when I was deposed, although he didn't add insult to injury, he never spoke a word in my defense either. Now, out of nowhere, he shows up at my door. He said to have you go offer incense at the winter solstice. I said, frowning in thought, what does that mean? Xiao Chengjing gave a bitter smile. The imperial mausoleum is a restricted area. Commoners are not allowed to enter and pay respects. Is he testing me? Whether it's a test or not, since he's given the order, we have to go, I decided without hesitation, and we have to do it in style. On the day of the winter solstice, heavy snow fell in swirling flurries. Su Wantang and I helped Xiao Chengjing put on that old long gown that had been stored away at the bottom of a trunk, faded from repeated washing, but pressed perfectly smooth and flat. With no ritual offerings to present, I simply steamed a few large white buns and dotted each with a red mark. The three of us braved the wind and snow, trudging unsteadily toward the imperial mausoleum. When they reached the tomb entrance, they were indeed stopped by the guards. Commoners, halt. Just as Xiao Chengjing was about to speak, a carriage approached slowly. The curtain was lifted, revealing the regent's impassive face. Let them in. The guards immediately stepped back. Xiao Chengjing took a deep breath, straightened his back, and walked up the steps one by one. I stood below, watching that figure from behind. Though thin and though downcast, he at this moment radiated an unprecedented tenacity. He knelt before the late emperor's tomb for a full hour, snow piled up on his shoulders, yet he remained utterly still. The regent stood not far away, watching, turning the prayer beads in his hand, his eyes dark and unreadable. By the time Xiao Chengjing came down, his legs were completely frozen stiff, and we had to help him back that night. The regent arrived at the cold kill this time. He came without any attendants and walked straight inside, gazing at our humble yet cozy little nest. A complex look flickered in his eyes. You've been living here for the past 6 months. Xiao Chengjing lowered his head. Yes. Do you resent it? Xiao Chengjing was silent for a moment, then raised his head, his eyes clear. At first, I did. I resented the emperor for his ruthlessness, resented my brothers for turning on each other, resented the heavens for their injustice. But now, not anymore. He looked at Su Wantang, who was mending clothes, and then at me, who was busy by the stove. Had I not gone through this ordeal, I might have remained forever a useless man who knew nothing of the people's hardships and could only pontificate. Though poor now, I feel at peace inside. The Prince Regent stared at him for a long while, then suddenly smiled. What a relief. He pulled a dossier from his sleeve and placed it on the table. This is the evidence that originally framed you for embezzling military funds. It was a setup by your dear younger brother, in cahoots with Minister Shen. The room fell into dead silence. The spatula in my hand clattered to the floor with a clang. Minister Shen, my father, although I had long suspected it, hearing the news still sent a chill through my heart. Why are you helping me? Xiao Chengjing's voice trembled. The Prince Regent stood up and patted Xiao Chengjing on the shoulder. Because now, you finally look like a true heir to the throne. The emperor is gravely ill, and the third prince is acting as regent, throwing the court and the country into chaos. The realm of Great Qi cannot be handed over to someone like him. Pack your things, return to the capital with me. 14. The journey back to the capital was far more grand and extravagant than the one here by an immeasurable margin, yet sitting inside the spacious carriage, I found myself missing that drafty, cold kill. What, can't bear to leave? Xiao Chengjing, having read my thoughts, leaned over and asked, a little. I admitted honestly, once we're back, it'll be all scheming and deceit again. There's none of the ease we had there. Xiao Chengjing took my hand, then reached for Su Wantang's hand, and stacked the three of our hands together. Don't worry, once we're back, I will never let anyone bully you again. The moment we returned to the Eastern Palace, it felt like a lifetime had passed. The title of deposed Crown Prince was removed. Xiao Chengjing once again took charge of the Eastern Palace, and even gained the additional title of regent. The once arrogant third prince, found guilty on solid evidence of corruption, was thrown into prison. As for the Shun family, on the day their home was raided, I made a point of going to watch. The once splendidly magnificent minister's residence is now covered with sealing papers. Shun Henian, dressed in prison uniform, caught sight of me in the crowd as he was being escorted onto the prison van. A flicker of light passed through his murky eyes, as if clutching at a lifeline. Anian, save your father. I'm your father. Put in a good word for me with the crown prince. I stood there, watching him expressionlessly. Lord Shun, I said coolly, when you shoved me into that sedan chair back then, did you ever think of me as your daughter, back when you embezzled my mother's life, saving money and drove her to her death? Did you ever stop to think that she was the one sharing your pillow? As you sow, so shall you reap. You deserve all of this. My legitimate mother and Shen Jiao were also in the prison cart, crying so hard their makeup was ruined, without a trace of their former aristocratic elegance. Watching their retreating figures, I felt none of the satisfaction I had imagined, only a profound calm. This page has finally been turned. 15. Xiao Chengjing did what he said. He swiftly rectified the imperial court's governance, overturned unjust cases, and managed the court's affairs in perfect order. The old emperor held on for half a year before finally passing away. On the day Xiao Chengjing ascended the throne, he granted a general amnesty to the realm. Su Wantang was naturally and rightfully crowned empress, and on the eve of the investiture ceremony, Xiao Chengjing came to me with an imperial edict, imperial noble consort, second only to the empress. Anian, this is the highest rank I can give you. I looked at the edict and shook my head. I don't want it. Xiao Chengjing was stunned. Why, are you still blaming me? No, I smiled. Xiao Chengjing, this imperial palace is too vast, and the walls are too high. I don't belong here. Sister Wn Tang has a quiet temperament and can sit steadily in the empress's position. But I want to leave the palace. Leave the palace. Xiao Chengjing's voice shot up an octave. Where will you go? I want to open a restaurant. My eyes sparkled. I'll call it Sui and Lu. I want to pass on my culinary skills and see everyone enjoying their meals happily. Besides, I don't want to be in the rear palace, vying for favor with your other women. The bond between the three of us was forged little by little in that humble cold kill. I don't want to wear it away. Xiao Chengjing was silent for a long time. He looked at me, his eyes full of reluctance, but he understood me finally. He sighed and withdrew the imperial edict. Fine, have it your way, but you must not go too far from the capital. Also, when I'm hungry, I must be able to drop by for a meal at any time. I chuckled. Deal, I'll reserve a private room for you, free for life. 16. 3 years later, the most popular restaurant in the capital, Sui and Lu, was packed to capacity. Everyone knew that this restaurant had powerful connections reaching the highest echelons. The shopkeeper is the adopted younger sister of the current emperor, Princess Ngwa of the blood royal. That's right, Xiao Chengjing didn't make me an imperial consort. He directly acknowledged me as his younger sister and even gave me a gold plaque granting immunity from execution. That day, 2 special guests came to the restaurant. One was dressed in an informal bright yellow imperial robe, the other radiant and dignified. I was busy working in the back kitchen when I heard the commotion, so I hurriedly wiped my hands and came out. Oh, dear guest, what would you like to eat today? Xiao Chengjing said with a stern face. The usual braised pork, vinegar braised cabbage, and a tomato and egg drop soup. Su Wantang took my hand with a smile and said, Yan, you've lost weight again lately. Not at all, I'm busy. I cooked a whole table of dishes for them myself. While we were eating, Xiao Chengjing complained that my plating wasn't delicate enough, yet he kept stuffing braised pork into his mouth. Su Wantang, sitting beside him, picked up food for him with tender eyes. I watched this scene, and my heart felt warm. Outside the window, the vibrant life of the capital was in full swing. The humble daughter who once thought she would surely die inside the sedan chair had now become the person she most wanted to be, without needing to please anyone or depend on anyone. I have money, skills, and the 2 most honorable family members in this world. This fortune is something I earned myself. Anian, What are you daydreaming about? If you don't eat soon, I'll finish all the meat. Hey, leave some for me. I laughed and lunged forward, joining the meat-grabbing battle. Life is truly good like this. That's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments section. See you in the next video.